Welcome to Raw Radio.
And we're live.
Oh, nice. That's your radio voice. I like it. So that was a pretty good episode we just did with Pedro Valente. And some really interesting stuff. And what an incredible human being.
Well, I think interesting on many levels, at least in my eyes. One, the historical aspect of his life, directly impacted by his father, Pedro, and by Helio Gracie himself. And he talked about so much about the childhood growing up. What was it like to grow up in a Valente family, and then what was it like to being on Helio Gracie farm and having some of those directly impacted experiences.
Uncle
Right?
Helio.
Uncle Helio, right? It was not Grandmaster. It was Uncle Helio,
Yeah.
right? And the elevator where he couldn't press the button to the 18th floor to go to the
That's right.
academy, right? And that's how young he was. But we went beyond that. He talked about philosophy of jiu-jitsu, philosophy of life, how they connect together. He talked about how sport, self-defense, the art of jiu-jitsu. It is something that Chris Howder often talked about recently on our show, right? The art, the sport, and the ability to protect yourself. So it was all coming all around, all together, I should say, in the aspect of the art of jiu-jitsu. What did you take away, Gary? What was your big anchor point during the show?
I think he kept talking. He early in the episode, he mentioned multiple times the phrase "better than nothing," and I think in these times right now, that was a great philosophy to have, and to be able to look at a situation. And you see all the negative aspects of the situation, all the hurdles, all the struggles, all the baloney and BS, but you find a way to find some good in it or adapt to it, to move forward, to progress. And when you find that little thing, you realize that that is better than nothing. And how can we move forward now from this point? And I think that was a huge takeaway for me, that with all the struggles that 2020 brought, his philosophy was what we can do now is better than nothing. And how do we grow on that?
We've talked about that on the show before, or at least I've mentioned it on this show before. And I'm quite open about this whole philosophy, a little bit more than nothing, and work with what you have, control what you can control, but let go of things that you cannot control. I think this is so important in life, especially in jiu-jitsu, when you take that approach.
Yeah.
When we look at jiu-jitsu as arts, as art of preservation, art of defending yourself and going through these motions. I did mention on the show a couple times, I think, the fact of, I kind of see it two ways. There's two types of different people who will do everything that to get to their goal, whatever the goal is, and people who will find every reason not to get to their goal, every obstacle, and it's so easy for us to, I think, get in this vortex of negative, and find, well, 2020 sucked, I couldn't train, I couldn't see my friends, I was locked down in the house, and all the other things, versus find what you can control,
Right.
adapt to the situation.
Yeah.
And continue doing what you want to do. And
Right.
that's what.
And
Go ahead.
I was going to say the only thing you can really do in life, and I learned this a few years back, is you can own your response to things. Good or bad, you've got to own that response. And if everything that's coming at your way right now at this moment is negative, how you respond to that is really the only thing that you can own, that's yours. And so you make the best of a bad situation, right? And we've talked about this before, and we're not talking about like these tragic major events. I'm talking more about like some of the things that 2020 brought for most people, where it was the inconveniences of not being able to do your normal routine, right? That's how I think it affected most of us. Obviously a lot of families lost people, businesses shut down. But even in the business world, how did you own your response when maybe your local community said you got to shut your doors, or you can't do the things that you usually do? And those are the responses that I'm talking about. And Pedro was able to look at things in a way and say, what can we do so that I can offer something to my students to keep us moving forward through these hard times? And it was out, and in the beginning, it was, hey, this is better than nothing, right? It was, let's get some training dummies for everybody, and we're going to be socially distanced, and we're going to wear masks. That's better than nothing, right? Because being on the mat is better than sitting home doing nothing.
I wish
In
everybody
whatever
saw it that way.
capacity, right?
I wish everybody saw it that way. Unfortunately, that's not the world that we find ourselves in today. I do believe that it is 100% true, even at our academy. I mean, we talked about this several times. I mean, the the hard decisions of making, we staying open or we shutting down. Are we going to get through this? Are we going to permanently shut down? Is this even worth doing? When is the end? When is the light at the end of the tunnel? Like, all these conversations were taking place on weekly basis. But at any given point, I personally didn't even accept the choice of going the opposite direction. We need to get through it. It's not if, it's how. How are we going to get around these obstacles, and what are we going to make out of it? And I personally do think that 2020 was challenging. I do personally think that 2020, was not the best year of my life. However, I will tell you this. I'll tell you several things that happened great in 2020. One of which is this show.
Yeah.
I mean, look, listen, maybe I could have a better host, but that's a different story. But
you're the host.
Oh, damn it. Oh, I just threw myself under the bus.
I'm the sidekick. I'm the lackey. So yeah, maybe you're right about that.
But listen, we could have been sitting and doing nothing, and we had this crazy idea of getting this crazy show off the ground. And now, nearly 40 episodes in, we talked to 40 different people from jiu-jitsu community, learning amazing stories with them.
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but I'm kind of starstruck here. We are talking to guys that I've never imagined be talking to.
No, and like Pedro's one of them, and great. We've talked to people in the Gracie family. We've talked to Olympic athletes. We've talked to people that just own their own CrossFit gym. Shout out Rudy. And all those, I never would have met those people. I've known a couple people that we've had on as guests. But out of the 40, I've known probably, just a couple, 3, 4 at the most. So I've got this great opportunity, or I've had this great opportunity now to meet all these amazing individuals, and I think learn so much.
And I think the best part behind all of this is that somebody out there will say, but it has nothing to do with jiu-jitsu. You guys are talking and doing nothing else, and anybody can do this. See, and I completely disagree with this whole part, because we are dipping into the philosophical part of jiu-jitsu. We're talking about philosophies. We're talking about history. Did we learn history of jiu-jitsu on this show?
Absolutely.
Well, we had several examples that we are dipping into stories and literally historical facts that took place way back in the day from the mouth of the people who are there. And I don't know. Listen, again, we could complain about all of this. I look at this as a blessing. So even though 2020 was challenging, I think there was many things for me personally that unfolded in a very positive way. And this show is one of them. So
right. Well, and it's because of how did you respond? I've said this multiple times. You didn't turn the lights off at the academy and go home and say, all right, we'll see you guys in a few months when this all goes back to normal, right? Which turns out here we are a year later, right? We're creeping up on the anniversary of when we closed the doors. So you took your response and made it a positive one, because Zoom classes were better than nothing. Drilling classes were better than nothing. Um, Kids Zoom classes, better than nothing. And you just kept responding in a positive way. And that encouraged others. Um, what the Valente brothers did encouraged others. And, it really turned a serious negative um, into something you can learn from and grow from. And I have to commend all the people like that did that rather than shutting off the lights, going home and going on Instagram and bitching and moaning, right? Um, or even like being defiant, right? They had to have this defiant attitude and screw it. And I don't care what they say.
But that's so.
No,
Isn't it the defense mechanisms that we, as humans, we have? I mean, part of our the natural habits is always to protect ourselves, and often creating that wall in front of us and not accepting the change is part of the defense mechanism. Unfortunately, not adapting
right.
is putting us in the worst situations as
Yeah.
the situation is changing around us, right? So we, by being agile and adapting to the new circumstances,
Hmm.
is very important part of the survival, if you will. Like, even think about jiu-jitsu. Think about it, even in jiu-jitsu, if you just completely lock down and you sit, do nothing, very likely the situation will turn against you as your partner
Hmm.
is making progressive steps towards whatever he's doing, and you doing completely no, you taking no action.
Right.
Versus if you start taking steps, even if they are little steps, but you're taking steps to, one, stop your partner from doing what they need to do, and at the same time translate this into a progressive approach towards wherever you are trying to go. These are two different ways of thinking about this.
Yeah, and I think that one is kind of a stunted way of mental. It's a stunted development in your mental growth, where when you have an obstacle, you get angry and you shut down. All right, or you're on the mat and you have an obstacle, and you ball up, you turtle up, and that's it. You're done. Um, excuse me. And you have to have I think a better response to it, which is, how do I adapt? How do I move forward? How do I make it better? Are there any silver linings?
Mm.
Is there anything I can learn from this? And you're able to do those things. You're not as angry. You can live a fulfilling life even under um, some restrictions that were put upon you. Um, I'm sure when I'm 80 years old, insert your joke there, that I will look back. I'll look back on 2020 because I wasn't really seriously horribly affected. I don't ever want to dismiss the people that have had some true tragedy in 2020. I don't want to do that. But I will look back in a couple decades and see how it made my family life stronger. It made some of my friendships stronger, and it gave me opportunities that I never probably would have seen or taken advantage of if the obstacles of 2020 weren't put in my way.
Yeah, let me link this to jujitsu a little bit, because this happens all the time. A student hurts themselves. There's a major or minor injury, and they choose literally to take break instead of coming to class anyway, sitting on
Mm-hmm.
the sidelines, making notes, watching, taking mental notes, maybe making journal notes, studying. Studying. And we talk about this so many times on the show. Studying is beyond you practicing things on the mat with your partner. Pedro talked about that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Dummies, things that they've never done before, yet they were forced into situation to use dummies, and now it's part of their normal curriculum. It's part of the drilling practice. It
Right.
is not because they chose to do it, it's because they were forced into this situation that they had to adapt to what was right in front of them in order for them to continue training. Now now they became part of the nature.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to say that they did choose to do it. You said they didn't choose to. I think they did choose to, right? They were forced to either adapt or shut down, all of us,
Right.
and they chose a different path, right? That was their response to it. And yeah, you get injured in jiu-jitsu. From when I've had injuries, I keep showing up just to keep that routine, right? Even if I'm not learning, I'm not taking notes all the time, whatever, just to keep the routine of being somewhere that's schedulable, because I know if I don't, then it's easy to give it up, to take more time off, longer breaks, all that type of stuff. Yeah, I mean, these ideas of changing and adapting, I think, are so important, especially with what we've gone through in the past year.
Yet they're difficult. It's so much easier to sit on the couch, watch Thursday night football with a
Yes,
beer and pizza in your hand.
Sugarfoot. We're always going to go back to Sugarfoot.
We always going to go back to Sugarfoot. Well, yeah, brilliant words. I'm just saying,
Yes.
right? It's
Yeah.
so much easier to do all this and forget about all the other stuff instead of pick up your butt, get your bag, get in your car, go to your academy. If you can't train, use your head, use your mind, make your notes, study your training partners. So when you come back on the mat, you know what they're going to do. You're going to be step ahead of them. Remember, education takes place not only on the mat with your partner. It's everywhere. I'm going to challenge all this, and I'm going to say big part of your education should be off the mat, watching videos, studying the technique, having conversations, listening to this show, and doing everything else.
I like the way you threw that in there.
I
see what you did.
It was
there.
smooth.
Yeah.
Nobody noticed until you said it. You ruined everything.
Well, I like to point those things out. It's important to me.
That's why you're here. That's why
I'm here. Absolutely.
That's why you're here.
But I really own, there's something called R factor if people want to look it up. But the one thing I took away from the R factor is that the only thing you can really own is your response. And sometimes little bits and little pieces are better than nothing.
I agree. Let's wrap this up. This is pure wisdom. Everybody should listen to this. You're a smart dude, Gary.
Sometimes I can pull a rabbit out of a hat. I was going to say pull something out of somewhere else, but
All right.
I kept it there. All right, on to the next one.
This show was good until 30 seconds ago.
I do what I can.
On to the next one.
Peace.
Later.
Thank you for listening to Raw Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.